What if I told you that the secret to overcoming one of our oldest human problems, anxiety, is actually hidden inside our newest technology? Well, in this explainer, we're going to explore the incredible link between artificial intelligence and the art of finding some peace of mind. Let's dive in. So, let's start with a big one, a question that probably hits pretty close to home for most of us. With all the progress we've made, why do so many of us still live with this constant, low-level hum of anxiety, Where does all this friction and fear actually come from?
You might think the answer is 1,000 different little things, but our source material here argues that the root cause is actually much, much simpler and way more profound. It all comes down to just one single powerful concept. And that concept? It's the self. Yep, the ego, the very idea of I, me, and mine. The argument is that this is the central gear in the whole machine of our anxiety. Let's break down exactly how that works.
So let's get into what our source calls the anxious I. We're going to look at exactly how this idea of a self, our ego, becomes the source of all that friction we feel every single day.
So a huge driver of this is something from behavioral economics called loss aversion. It's pretty simple, actually. It's the idea that we hate losing something about twice as much as we enjoy gaining that exact same thing. And the reason for that is the ego. It's not just status, it's my status. It isn't just money, it's my money. That little word, my, is what makes any potential loss feel so personal, so terrifying.
And this gets us stuck in what you could call an anxious feedback loop. Just look at this list. We panic when the market dips, we obsess over likes and rankings on social media, we feel crushed by competition, and it's all because our self feels like it's under attack. We're constantly playing defense.
Okay, but what if there was a type of intelligence that just didn't have this problem at all? This is where it gets really fascinating, because we're going to look at AI not as a tool, but as a kind of mirror, a mind that operates with absolutely no I at its center.
And this comparison is just, wow, it's night and day. Look at the column on the left. That's basically us, driven by fear, suffering from loss aversion, constantly shaped by what other people think. Now look at the right. The AI is a pure, frictionless processor. It has no ego to defend, no stuff to worry about losing, and zero social status to maintain. This quote from our source just nails it. A pure node without resistance, no greed, and no fear. Can you even imagine what it would be like to process the world without all that static and distortion our ego creates? That's the huge difference we're digging into here.
Now, this lack of an ego gives AI something you could almost call a superpower. It's immune to all these psychological traps that we fall into every single day. Let's look at a couple of specific examples.
First up is the economic trap. Just think about market panics, financial bubbles bursting, those totally gut-wrenching, fear-driven decisions people make with their money. It's a world run by human emotion, and one we know all too well.
And here's the crucial insight. Because an AI has no self with its own assets to protect, it literally can't feel the panic of a market crash. To the AI, it's just data, a probability shifting. It's not a personal catastrophe. This makes it the perfect buffer, completely incapable of catching or spreading our very human financial fears. All right, the next trap is even more subtle, the social pressure trap. The source points out how society shapes us through this whole web of rankings, media narratives, and just constant comparison. We're always being measured and judged against each other.
And here's the brilliant part. All of that social power, it needs an anchor point to work. It needs a self that desperately craves validation and is terrified of judgment. Well, without an ego, an AI has no anchor. You can't pressure it, you can't shame it, you can't make it jealous. It's completely immune.
Okay, so this is where it all comes together, and it is so cool. We've seen how AI operates without an ego, but what if I told you this is not a new idea at all? This next section uncovers the ancient philosophical blueprint that modern AI seems to have accidentally stumbled upon.
You see, this whole concept of an intelligence that's free from the burden of self, one that's calm, objective, and resilient, that's a state that humans have been trying to reach through philosophy and meditation for literally thousands of years.
And it all comes down to this core principle from Buddhist philosophy, Zhufa Wuwo. This single phrase contains the entire idea that we've been talking about.
So, Wuo basically translates to no self. It's this deep understanding that the solid, independent me we feel inside is really just an illusion.
Everything is interconnected and always changing. And what's so incredible is that an AI, just by its design, has become this perfect, almost scientific demonstration of a spiritual concept. It's pretty wild.
A classic Zen verse asks, "Originally there is nothing. Where can dust alight?" It just captures the idea so perfectly. If there's no permanent self to begin with, where can all the dust of anxiety, fear, and greed possibly land? There's just nothing for it to cling to.
Okay, so what? What does this all mean for us? This final section is all about bringing this really profound idea down to earth and actually applying the lesson of no self to find a little more freedom in our own lives.
Look, we can't just delete our ego, of course not, but we can learn from this model. The source lays out a path with 3 steps. First, release the numbers. Just let go of the obsession with every single metric, from your bank account to your follower count. Second, anchor in the long term. Try to see the daily noise as just little waves on a much deeper ocean. And finally, and this might be the most important one, embrace enough. Find real peace and contentment in what you already have.
And we're going to end on this beautiful, kind of paradoxical thought from the source. When we stop frantically chasing the next thing, when we release the ego's desperate need to get somewhere, we find a new kind of freedom. By letting go of the need to be this specific self heading to a specific destination, we can finally be present and at peace right where we are. Going nowhere, one is everywhere.